Welcome to part 2 on the best way for you to process your traumas using astrology. And today we're going to be taking a look at what it means to have air and water signs in your 8th house of traumas. So we're going to be looking at water and fire signs. If you're an earth or air sign, you want to watch the previous video where I basically show you the best way for you to process your traumas, which is going to be found by the element and the signs and the indicators in your 8th house, which is the house that rules traumas. There are so many amazing ways to process traumas, but the best way for you to process your trauma is going to be based on what you are most receptive to, the method that's going to be the most effective, successful, and sustainable for you, and that's what we're going to get into. So if you have Gemini in your 8th house of trauma, you're going to be a Scorpio rising. Now, Gemini being an air sign and a fun, curious sign like Gemini, the best way for you to process your traumas is to be really playful and friendly with it. Maybe connect with your inner child, learn, make connections, read, study, which is kind of similar to Virgo in this placement, simply because they're both ruled by Mercury. However, Virgo is going to be a lot more practical oriented, there's more of a serious tone, where with Gemini, it's about being playful, connecting with your inner child. Processing trauma in a social setting is going to be something that can be really beneficial. Music is also a wonderful process for you because Gemini does rule music. One of the twins in ancient astrology is holding a musical instrument. So music therapy can be really amazing, or anything that really uses that does bilateral stimulation, where you're basically balancing both parts of your brain, and it's a thing that people do as a way to sort of self-regulate ADHD as well. So something that allows you to kind of focus in a really creative way is going to be really beneficial for Geminis. And finding playful ways to make connections in a friendly social environment among close friends, people you feel comfortable with, this is going to be something that's going to be really beneficial for you. Now, if you have Libra in your 8th house of traumas, you want to take an approach that is going to be more one-on-one. It's still going to be social because it is in the energy of an air sign. However, it's going to be better for you to work with someone on a one-on-one environment, someone who is more lighthearted, maybe a little bit more gentler and refined and harmonious in their delivery and their communication style, someone who's intelligent. I would also say that if you have a Libra here and you're a creative person, you love to decorate and stuff like that, I think that that's a wonderful tool that you can use, because what interior designers do is that they are redecorating things by using the existing stuff that you have in your home, so it really is allowing you to see things from a different perspective. So doing that sort of thing, kind of a role playing, trying to see things from the perspective of another person, this can be something that's really beneficial. Using creative art therapy, painting, things like that. Specifically, you may have a theme where it's going to be beneficial for you to process traumas related to relationships and partnerships. This can be an area that's particularly going to be triggering for you. I have a friend who's a Pisces rising, and this is something that he's struggled with. And so really finding a safe space for you to be able to process your trauma one-on-one, finding ways to process trauma where you are being fair but also very kind and harmonious is going to be a really beneficial process, rather than trying to be sort of aggressive. And you do want to verbalize things, but do it in a way that's going to be beneficial for you and for the other people involved as well. It's very much about extending the balance from within yourself outward onto others. Now, if you have Aquarius in your 8th house of trauma, you're a Scorpio rising like I am. And for you, the best way for you to process trauma is going to be taking a more cerebral approach. Using astrology is a wonderful tool. EMDR is a type of therapy where you do specific eye rapid movements. I think it stands for eye desensitization movement. I don't remember the last word, but it's a form of psychological approach where with specific eye movement combination, what's happening is that you're stimulating memories of past traumas that you're bringing to the surface so you can process it. This is something that's been used a lot specifically with war vets, and there's been tremendous success. I will say that when it comes to EMDR, it tends to be more beneficial for people who tend to disassociate and have a harder time connecting with their feelings. If you are someone who more like if you have Pisces here, for example, or Cancer, and it's easier for you you're hyper connected to your traumas, then EMDR is probably not going to be the best thing for you, because it's stimulating and it's bringing you to the core of your traumas, and that might actually be overwhelming. But for Aquariuses, this is especially beneficial because we live in this world that says that the way for you to process trauma is that you have to feel into it. And Aquariuses here can have a hard time with that, because honestly, that creates this disconnect, because Aquarius by design is more detached. So it's like, well, how are you supposed to process your traumas if you're having such a hard time connecting with your emotions? That isn't to say that you can't do this, especially being a Cancer rising. There is an emotional connection that's a part of your journey. But if it's something that you do struggle with, it's better to work with yourself rather than against yourself. And so using a detached approach, using scientific methods, using astrology, going online, working with your local community, these are going to be things that work better with the energy that's here. And that's also why I recommended EMDR, because if you do want to sort of stimulate and have a deeper connection connect with your trauma, that's an excellent resource that's available to you as well. Now, moving on to the fire signs, or the having fire in your 8th house, I should say. If you have Aries in your 8th, wait, what am I talking about here? No, we're not talking about fire signs. I'm sorry, we're talking about water signs. If you have water in your 8th house, so say you have Cancer in your 8th house, you're a Sag rising. And so for you, there's going to be a hypersensitization to your emotions. Whenever you have water in your 8th house of trauma, you have the same element that the 8th house rules, because the 8th house is home to Scorpio. So for you, it's really important to offer a really nurturing environment for yourself. And so when it comes to processing your traumas, you want to make sure that you feel comfortable and safe. One of the things about Cancers is that it's really important for you to feel ready. We live in this world that says, well, you're never going to be ready. And yes, to a degree, that's true. And sometimes, you don't want to just sit on something forever, but particularly wherever you have Cancer in your chart, this is an area where it's really important for you. What's going to motivate you to get started is to feel safe within yourself. That's going to be something that's really important. So be patient with yourself. Cancer is ruled by the moon. It's very cyclical. I'm so sorry for the noise, you guys. I'm going to let that pass for a moment in case you can't hear me. Of course, now that I'm doing a video on mental health during Mental Health Awareness Month, there's all this noise and pollution in the background, but that's okay, because that's how life gets sometimes. Going back to when you have Cancer in your 8th house of traumas, you want to make sure to create an environment where you feel safe, where you feel nurtured, because that's what's going to motivate you to get started. Don't shame yourself and try to prematurely rush yourself, but just give yourself the space that you need to get started. And I would recommend working with someone that's a woman, someone who's emotional. It doesn't have to be a woman necessarily, but someone who is connected to their emotion. Maybe it has like a very mothering quality, someone who's nurturing. This can be working with someone who is very emotionally supportive. This is going to be something that'll be really beneficial for you. And this can also mean, if your family is open and you have a healthy relationship with your family, processing trauma with your family or your mother can be something that's very beneficial. If there's a way where you can process your trauma in a place that feels like home, if, for example, you are working with someone and you can do it in your home, that would be a really great place to start. Now, if you have Scorpio in your 8th house, this means that you're an Aries rising, and Scorpio is originally home to the 8th house. So this is very much a sign that's in tune with this placement. With having Scorpio here, it's really beneficial to use psychology, tarot, the occult, astrology as a way to process your traumas. Really confronting it, being honest and direct is going to be really beneficial, taking a strategic approach. Now, when it comes to Scorpio, it's represented by 3 different archetypes. It's first represented by a scorpion that evolves into a phoenix once it transmutes and transforms its traumas, and then it grows into, the next elevation is it grows into a dragon, which is great because the phoenix is a great symbology of growth, but it's not really a sustainable way to live. Like, you can't hug someone being a bird that's set on fire. You're gonna burn people. So when you elevate to a dragon, you can be the friendly dragon neighborhood, or you can blow fire out of your mouth. You have that sting and that fire of a Scorpio, but you are still able to control it a little bit more. And with Scorpio, it represents, and the 8th house, it represents trauma triggers, trauma exposure, trauma loops, trauma healing. And so you want to make sure that you create a pattern disrupt for yourself and find a way to be able to let go of the trauma, and using psychology, writing therapy in an environment that's more private can be really beneficial. You can also use Kundalini, sex tantra. That's something that can really use this energy beautifully. Now, if you have Pisces in your 8th house of trauma, you're a Leo rising. Now, having Pisces, the most vulnerable sign, in your 8th house of trauma, there's an extra heightened sensitivity here unless you have some other planet or something that changes that energy. So in this case, like I mentioned before, I don't recommend EMDR. You want to, and you don't really want to use a particularly aggressive approach. You want to use an approach to trauma healing and trauma therapy that's going to be gentler, that's going to be more nurturing. And it's the sign of confusion, ambivalence. It's a very spiritual sign, so it's not so much about details, it's really about endings. It's the opposite sign of Virgo, which is about conscious awareness. So when it comes to Pisces, it's less about really being aware of your traumas. I mean, there's a value and importance to it, and that's also going to be indicated by where your Mercury is. But the best way for you to process your traumas is actually to learn to let it go, to practice forgiveness, using water therapy. Float therapy can be a great way to kind of learn to experience things in a different way. It can be really beneficial. Learn how, like, just sort of like, if you can, go to a float therapy and maybe think about some of the things you're frustrated about. It's a little bit harder to hold that anger when you're floating in water, and imagine what it would feel like to let that energy go. That could be something that's really beneficial. Reiki and prana healing are also, and other types of energy healing, but especially Reiki and prana healing work really well with having Pisces here. It really naturally uses that energy. Using spirituality is a beautiful way. Going to a spiritual retreat, rather than trying to process your trauma in a public setting, being in a space where you're in isolation can be really good. Even something as simple as taking a bath and thinking about just getting into the practice of learning to let things go a little bit every day, a little bit every day. This is going to be something that can help you. So as you can tell, if you've watched both videos, which if you haven't already, please go and watch the first video, you'll notice that depending on the sign that you have here, the best way to process your trauma isn't necessarily going to be the traditional popularized way, such as seeing a therapist, working with an expert. It really does depend on your specific placement. I hope this information has helped you. I hope that you are taking care of yourself, not just during Mental Health Awareness Month, but every day, all year. I hope that you are prioritizing your health, your mental well-being, and I absolutely wish you the best. Oh, and one more thing I wanted to mention, I forgot, is if you have air in your 8th house, so this is also the case with Cancer risings, and let's see, I would say also Gemini risings too. I'm sorry, not Gemini rising, Gemini in the 8th house, which would place you as a Scorpio rising. Libra in the 8th house to a lesser degree, but for Scorpio risings and Cancer risings, using Theta healing, which is a type of energy healing that uses brain waves, can be really beneficial because it's using the brain. Aquarius rules the brain, Gemini is ruled by Mercury, which rules the mind, and so this can also be another type of energy healing that can be really beneficial as well. Anyways, I am done sharing this information with you. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you soon. Oh, and I did just start a new blog, so please go ahead and check that out and subscribe. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye.